say, I'm not even being funny about this. I'm kind of rooting for you, JRobin. Like, genuinely. I don't really like the Atheist Experience.
Yeah. People, we had a couple people yesterday and in the past asked me to call in, so I was like, okay, fine.
Well, I've thought about...
they're just gonna. It's all that fucking show is hang up on theist show. You're just gonna get hung up on.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I've actually thought...
Let us talk to... Let's do it. Let's talk to Robin. Let's go, Robin. Let's go.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Robin.
How's it going?
What would you like?
Hey, Robin.
Welcome to the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Yeah, just I know I'd seen the preview for the show, and it said, no one has shown this evidence for God in 25 seasons. So,
Right.
But, I'll take a stab at it.
Cool.
Let her rip.
Yeah, so it's a very simple argument. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with the transcendental argument. So it basically would go like God is necessary for intelligibility, rationality. Rationality and intelligibility exist, therefore God exists.
Isn't that begging the question because you have God in the first premise and also the conclusion?
No, that wouldn't be begging the question.
Why not? You say God is required, which presupposes God exists in the premise, and then the conclusion is God exists. So wouldn't you need to not have God in any of the premises in order for the conclusion to actually follow?
No, what I'm saying is that something is like I'm saying that there is an implication. So if I say if P then Q, P then Q, that's essentially what I'm saying here. Now I could put it differently. So I could say if intelligibility exists and knowledge exists and rationality exists and God exists, premise 2, intelligibility, rationality, knowledge exists, therefore God exists. So that's not begging the question, right? Modus ponens is not begging the question.
So then you have to prove the first premise, if that's the case. So you would have to demonstrate to me that if intelligibility and logic exists, God exists is a premise that's supported and not just an assertion.
Yeah, so like I would say something like God's revelation is demonstration enough. The Christian. By the way.
Okay, so then you're falling back on you have like a personal experience that supports the premise, right? So not logic, like a personal revelation is what supports the premise. Your individual experience.
No, it's not my individual experience that proves it, right?
What do you mean by when you say revelation?
If you ask, let me make sure. Like actually, let me make sure I'm clear. So, God's revelation is how I know it to be the case, right? So I know innately, as does everyone else, that God exists.
But I don't know that. So
yeah,
that's
I don't know that either. You're asserting that everyone knows innately that God exists, but how do you prove that? I don't feel like I know that.
Well, when I said that I'm saying you have like a direct acquaintance with the truth of the fact of the matter. So in this case,
that's just an assertion. I mean,
well, no, I'm defining it. It's not an assertion; it's a definition.
Okay, but you're asserting that something is required for knowledge and intelligibility, and you want to call that God, but you have no evidence for any of that. It's
because it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the support for premise 1 is that everybody just knows it's true.
Are you saying I need to have some sort of empirical demonstration or deductive argument for premise 1?
You have to say you have to have something if you're going to compel me other than, well, it's the reason that it's true is because everybody just knows it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whether or not it compels you is an issue that it can be talked about. But
that also doesn't support it though. Like I don't see how you think that it supports it. Like, so the reason that premise 1 is true is because of revelation. You define revelation as, well, everybody just kind of innately knows that this is the case. We've said, well, not everybody innately knows that this is the case because we would contest that because we don't. And your counter to that was, well, it doesn't really matter if you contest it because I'm asserting that you do just as a matter of brute fact. And so there is no contest there because I'm just asserting that everybody knows that it is the case. Nana, nana, nana. If you guys say that you don't, too bad. I know what you know better than you guys do. And thus my premise is supported. That doesn't seem strong to me.
We can we can do worldview comparisons, between my worldview.
I'm still at you're supporting the premise, though. Like,
it doesn't matter how many worldviews there are.
Premise,
it's an assertion.
I didn't say that. So, okay, I didn't say that is true in virtue of the falsity necessarily of other worldviews. I'm saying that we can use the truth of Christianity and show, as an instrument to show the absurdity of other worldviews, but you
haven't.
But
how? How can you? 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 How can you say that you can prove the truth of Christianity and refute other worldviews? You haven't done that. No one has.
Yeah. So the falsity of other worldviews. So the falsity of other worldviews fundamentally would just be in virtue of the truth of the Christian worldview, because the Christian worldview, if it was true, it would necessarily be true because of the nature of God being that which is metaphysically primary. But
you're using word salad again. Robin, you're just using word salad. You're saying the truth of Christianity would reveal itself because it's just obviously true. And since it's obviously true, all the other worldviews are false. So tell me what you said again.
That's not what I just said. No.
Okay, tell me what you just said.
Yes. So what I said was that if Christianity were to be true, it would be necessarily true because of the nature of
you're still having to start with if it's true. Now you're saying if it's true, then it would be necessarily true. I could say that about any worldview. If this is actually true, it would be necessarily true. So you still haven't proven that Christianity is true. So prove it.
Okay, so maybe I'm not understanding what your standard of proof is. Are you saying that you need an empirical demonstration to believe something to be true, or like an argument or something? Or what are you saying?
Yeah, I need evidence.
Yeah,
evidence.
Something other than an assertion.
Something other than an assertion. Exactly.
So everything you believe is on the basis of an argument, or empirical.
It's on the basis of evidence, proof.
Okay, so like you believe presumably that causality is real, that there's a cause and effect relationship between things. What's your proof for that?
I didn't say I believe that.
Why are you
telling me what I believe? Do I believe what?
Presumably. Do you believe that causality is real?
Explain causality so that I understand what you're talking about. Do I believe that everything is caused by something else? I honestly don't know.
Do you believe?
I honestly don't know. I don't know. What does it matter?
Okay.
What does it matter in terms of whether Christianity is true or not? Why don't you're the one making the claim. Why don't you prove?
The reason I'm asking
Robin,
is because you're levying against me a standard of proof that I don't think you.
I am. No, I'm not making a claim. You're making a claim that Christianity is true. We're asking you to show us evidence. That's that simple. You're going down rabbit trails that don't matter.
So the evidence, I've already presented the argument and the evidence to you. You don't accept the evidence, and so now I'm trying to figure out why you don't accept the evidence, and I'm trying to see if you're consistent with the standard of proof.
So I feel like I articulated to you that your evidence was an assertion. Yeah. So my standard of proof is like
all pieces of evidence
would exceed just a bald assertion, which is what
all evidence
premise
is assertion.
was.
All
evidence is assertion.
Well, evidence varies in degrees of veracity, though, right? Like not all evidence is good evidence, right? I think you and I would probably agree that there's things that we could say are evidence towards supporting something that vary in degrees. So like there could be good evidence for something, and there could be not as great evidence for something, but we might still consider it evidence for something, right?
Would revelation knowledge be good evidence?
When you say innate knowledge, so you mean that you're born with this knowledge. That it's just a matter of fact. That's no, I don't think that is something that is good evidence at all.
Why not?
Like just innate knowledge without any additional support, and also you would have to demonstrate that it was in fact the case that it's innate knowledge. And I don't think that you've gotten to that bar.
I didn't. That's whether or not you're demonstrating it is different. I asked, is innate knowledge in and of itself? The fact
is it good evidence is what you asked, and I said no.
Yeah,
it's not good evidence. It could be considered evidence, but I don't think it's good evidence. No, because you would be incorrect. Like the function of our cognitive function is such that we're consistently incorrect about our perceptions of the world.
Yes.
And we need constant reinforcements in order for that to be accurate.
What is innate knowledge?
I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
Innate knowledge would be that you'd know this infallibly, right? So just be a product of the basic fact that you're.
What if two people disagree on what they know? What if two people disagree on what they believe? What they believe is innate knowledge. One person says this is innate knowledge. The other person says, no, I have this innate knowledge. And those two knowledges disagree with one another. Which one is true, Robin?
Well,
how do we determine what one is true?
You haven't given me any more information, but the bottom line here is when I asked Shannon and you if innate knowledge would be good evidence, you said no, and when I'm asking you clearly, how it is the case that that's not true, or how it would not.
I have innate evidence. I have innate evidence. It wouldn't be good evidence because you would know. Okay.
Or innate knowledge.
No, I can maybe elucidate. So when I say I don't think it's good evidence, one of the reasons that I don't think it's good evidence is because I don't actually think that innate knowledge is really a thing. Like innate knowledge of like you can feel as though you like innately know something. Right? Like you can feel as though that is the case. But I would need, but please allow me to finish the explanation, and then maybe we'll be on the same page. Maybe you'll understand what I'm attempting to say a little bit better if you allow me to finish. So when you say that there is innate knowledge, I first would need you to demonstrate that it is the case, that it is universally like innate, so that everybody has this knowledge as a base. Something other than an assertion would be required for that. A defeater to that would be anybody who disagrees, I think, at all. And also cognitively, I don't think innate knowledge is even really a thing. You can feel like an innate knowledge that comports with reality that we would define as truth, that is like demonstratable and provable and is in line with reality. Like, I don't think that's the case. I don't think we are born knowing God, especially specifically the Christian God, exists, which is what it seems to be you would need to have innate knowledge of, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying we have innate knowledge of. Like, what do you think we have innate knowledge of? Like, everybody's born universally, they know this to be the case.
Go ahead. You have innate knowledge of
we have innate of God, of the laws of logic, things like that. Like,
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree that we have innate knowledge of God. How do you define God?
I said earlier, I said at the onset of the conversation, I'm a Christian, so I believe in the Christian God. Okay,
why do you assert that without evidence that we all have innate knowledge of this Christian God? Because you want it to be so.
Without evidence, because it would be the case that I do have knowledge of this because God furnished me with this knowledge. Right?
I have innate knowledge that Zeus is real. I have innate knowledge that Zeus is the true God and we should all worship him. I know this within me. How do you argue that?
Worldview compare it? Yeah, so we could compare the two worldviews and see whether
worldviews have nothing to do with it. Okay. There are a whole group of people.
Well, can I finish? Because I'm almost done. Okay. It would matter because whatever you claim about something, so in this case it would be innate knowledge, you're going to have entailments. And those entailments are either going to be consistent with each other and with the world, or they're not. So if you're going to tell me that you believe that Zeus, in the classic mythology, is who gave you this innate knowledge, we can look and see, okay, is this actually true? And if it's
Wouldn't the fact that those entailments are defeaters to the innate knowledge be evidence against your initial claim that innate knowledge was good evidence? Because you're saying that if we do a worldview comparison, at that point in time, we're doing a worldview comparison, and he's saying my innate knowledge is that Zeus exists, and you're saying, well, we do a worldview comparison, and I feel as though if we do a worldview comparison, my worldview is defeater to what you've asserted as innate knowledge. Therefore, your innate knowledge is not good evidence. Which means that that means like it seems to me that means that you can't just say that the basis of the premise that I'm attempting to support is innate knowledge because innate knowledge in and of itself is good evidence because you've just admitted that you require more.
No, it's not what's happening here.
It really is. Yeah.
The person who's claiming knowledge of Zeus doesn't actually know that Zeus exists because he doesn't exist.
That's an assertion.
He's claiming that he has
because you're
knowledge.
back to my innate knowledge.
By that same token, I could say to you that you don't have evidence that your Jesus exists. You just don't. You don't have evidence that Christian God is real. Any more than I do that Zeus is real.
I already gave it. I already gave my evidence. You didn't accept the evidence, which is different.
The transcendental argument for God.
I don't. You're right.
You're
absolutely right. I do not accept your evidence. Your evidence.
The evidence that you gave was the tag argument. The tag argument, like we're still on supporting premise one of the tag argument, but you're referring to that as your evidence for God, as though that assertion was accurate. And we're saying we don't feel as though premise one of that argument is supported. You say, well, it is supported because innate knowledge is actually the evidence for it through revelation. That's how we know. And we said, well, explain to me how innate knowledge is evidence. What if I said that I have innate knowledge that Zeus is in fact the God? And you said, well, if we do a worldview comparison, that will be a defeater to your innate knowledge. But also somehow innate knowledge is the support that I require and is fine for me. And that is what supports premise one, which is my evidence for God. Do you feel now like I'm listening?
No, you are listening. I'm just like the conclusion. Some of the conclusions you're drawing is just it just doesn't follow up, right? Because in the case that the worldview of Zeus has been disproven, right? Because we're saying you're granting that we've done the worldview comparison, right? That's what you just said, and we've disproven Zeus, right? So in that scenario, the person who
you're missing the point
would not have actually the person who believed in Zeus would not have had innate knowledge of Zeus, okay? But furthermore, right? In this case, right, when I appeal to my innate knowledge and you say you need further demonstration, I'm curious as to whether or not you're consistent with that standard, right? Do you need an argument for everything you believe? I would hope, and if you're careful, you would say no. And maybe you think so, you do. And
it would be my preference that I believe true things. And in order to believe true things, I think that they would be best supported by an epistemology that allows for the incorporation of external evidence in order to make sure and test and validate that what I do believe is true. I will grant that as humans, we very often believe things that are incorrect. That our innate disposition, in fact, is to kind of be pattern seeking and come to incorrect conclusions. So I would say that there's a strong likelihood that I, like anybody else, probably have some beliefs that are false, but that I would hold them up to external evidence in order to test their veracity and then change the schematics of what I believe in order to incorporate that new information.
I'm always willing to change my mind. In fact, I did. I used to believe that the Christian God was real. I used to believe that worldview was the only accurate one and every other one was wrong. But I came to the conclusion that I did not have enough evidence to support that, regardless of how much I innately knew that it was true. That's my point. It's not enough to innately know it. So I don't see how you.
Maybe there's a disconnect between our definitions of innate knowledge. But if we're taking, what Shannon and you said, right? It just seems to be. It seems like you're going to run into a problem if you're going to say that you need a deductive argument or empirical demonstration for every.
Well, I guess you say no. You're just saying that you don't need evidence.
So in principle, there's no problem with me presenting something to you that doesn't have, like, for example, when I say I know that God exists, in principle, there's nothing wrong with me not providing an empirical or deductive argument.
No, you can believe whatever you want. You're just not going to convince us. That's the problem. You're trying to convince other people.
Maybe I can more succinctly articulate what I said prior, which was what I said prior is that what things that I believe could potentially be false, right? They could potentially be false, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe them. I didn't require a deductive framework that has external evidence to have every belief that I have. But I think that the best way to test the veracity to ensure that what the things that you believe are true are to incorporate external evidence and test them out to make sure that, they are accurate. I can't think of another way aside from that to test their accuracy. Like you did a worldview comparison, for example, and I do understand that what you're like. So then you said, well, the person who asserted Zeus, because we refuted it, just doesn't have innate knowledge. So what you're saying is, it seems to me as though like you've stuck your flag in innate knowledge, and you've said, well, I've laid claim to innate knowledge. Like the Christian worldview is innate knowledge. All other worldviews don't pass the smell test for me. Therefore, I'm just saying mine is innate knowledge, and that means that it's evidence. But
it would be evidence.
But how you discounted the Zeus one though, right? And said that you don't feel like the Zeus one is innate knowledge, was that you kind of tested that hypothesis and found it lacking. Like, wouldn't you think that Christianity, in order for it to raise to the level of innate knowledge, would have to do the same thing? Which is kind of what I'm saying. I'm saying that in order for something to rise to like a really high bar of truth and knowledge that I feel like I can like really firmly stick a flag in it, the best way to do that is to do what you did with Zeus and what you should do with Christianity, and find ways to test it out.
Between the Christian God, and there's key differences and important differences between the Christian God and Zeus. And I think all of us, even the ones who are listening, are aware of. Okay, like
example, Zeus is not a good example, God, right?
Yeah, right. But I mean, I get the. I mean, just say if you want to do Christian God,
whether Zeus exists is irrelevant to the point that I was making, though, which is like that the process that you went through to discount that is the same process that I'm saying and we all should go to in order to really firmly hold any beliefs. That doesn't mean that is what we do. Like innately, we do something different. Like we acquire beliefs not through the best possible practices, but we should have an eye towards. And if we are claiming things and asserting truth, they should hold up to scrutiny. We shouldn't just assert. Well,
you're doing the same
my
thing.
truth is innate knowledge.
The thing is that you're doing the same thing, is in that you are going to be fundamentally question begging against your entire system. That's what you do, and that's what the other hosts, both hosts, you both do that, okay? Because you've come just short of admitting that. You do.
Admitting what?
Are you just doing it? I know you are, but what am I in this instance? Because we're still on. No, I thought we were still on premise one, and I was trying to.
That.
It sounds
I'm
like
not
you
doing
are.
that. I accept the Christian. I accept that the Christian God's revelation is where it's going to bottom out. But it seems like you want something more.
Well, that's our difference then. Like you're saying, this is where it bottoms out, and I'm saying, okay, well that's.
You don't need any empirical evidence to believe what you believe,
which fine.
And I do. And so there are a lot of people who need more evidence than apparently you do. I'm wondering what it would take for you. Would there be anything that would come across your horizon, that would come through your life, that would convince you that you've been wrong about this Christian God? What would it take?
If I had innate knowledge, what would the answer to that question be? No.
You could come to the conclusion that your innate knowledge was incorrect, just like the person who thought he had innate knowledge.
It wasn't innate knowledge. Well,
it would come to be, you would come. Then you would come to the conclusion that you didn't have innate knowledge and that you were mistaken.
No, but so then the problem you're doing, you're running an external critique. You're not actually running.
Could you ever be mistaken, Robin? Could you be mistaken? No, is it possible?
No.
Okay, then.
If Christianity was
thanks for calling.
Not be, but like.
Thanks for calling. You proved God. You got us.
This has gone exceptionally long, so we do have a bunch more calls in the queue. This was one of the more calm presuppositional dialogues I've had. So thank you for that, Robin. Sometimes they escalate to a point.
The problem with that, though, is if you
have a good day, Robin. Thank you. Call back again sometime.
Bye, Robin. If there's nothing that could convince you that you were wrong, then you are stuck in your certainty, and there's really no point in having a conversation with you.
I think where we were circling